Good evening, and welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance and interest to working Rhode Islanders. We hope you enjoy this evening's edition.
Welcome to Labor Vision. I'm Colleen Callahan, Director of Professional Issues at the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals. This two-part series is focused on educator evaluation and the benefits to a labor management collaboration in successfully implementing what is required of all districts in Rhode Island regarding teacher evaluation. In the first part of this series, we bring together union presidents and superintendents from two of the districts involved in the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers-led Innovation Initiative on Evaluation. These labor leaders and district leaders will explain to you how they are deriving great benefit from working together in implementing a pretty complex new initiative that's required of all Rhode Island districts. In the second part of the series, we'll focus on the challenges they face and how working together enables them to be very successful in their implementation effort. Good evening. Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Colleen Callahan, the Director of Professional Issues for the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals. And this is the third time we've been together to talk about teacher evaluation and the collaborative work that the RIFTHP is doing with 6 of our local school districts. I'm joined this evening by Frank Flynn, President of the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals, Liz Larkin, President of the Cranston Teachers Alliance, Ken Sheehan, Superintendent of Schools in West Warwick, Rhode Island, Sean Doyle, President of the West Warwick Teachers Alliance, and Peter Nero, Superintendent of Cranston Public Schools. As I said, this is the third time we've been together to talk about teacher evaluation. And the first time we met, we just talked a little bit about what was happening and what seemed to be surprising news to some people, that the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers was involved in this work. After that, we actually met with some of the folks who are doing the work in your districts, who are leading the work every day out in the schools and in the districts around helping teachers and principals learn more about teacher evaluation. And they told us quite a lot, but we've also done quite a lot since the last time we were together. So a quick synopsis so that everyone will understand what it is that we've been doing. For the last 2 years, the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers has been involved in an effort funded by a grant from the AFT and the United States Department of Education in developing a high-quality educator evaluation system. It's been tough work. We've spent 2 long years developing the system, piloting the system, and over this past year, we've worked with these 2 districts and 4 additional districts on meeting the Rhode Island Department of Education's requirements for implementing a new evaluation system in Rhode Island. We've been working with Central Falls, with Cranston, with Pawtucket, Providence, West Warwick, and Woonsocket. And in the last couple of weeks, we've received word that based on the revisions that we've done to the system, based on your hard work, we have been approved by the Rhode Island Department of Education for full implementation beginning in September 2012. It's quite an achievement. It was a lot of hard work, and we've gotten some recognition for the fact that the way we've approached this, the way we've decided to move forward with teacher evaluation in our initiative, the Innovation Initiative, has been a collaborative approach. And it's interesting that here we are on Labor Vision tonight with the president of the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals and the superintendent and union presidents from 2 of our districts. And we could have invited the superintendent and union president from the 4 other districts, except I don't think our set would allow that. So the weight of the other districts is resting on your shoulders. We've been asked the question a lot, sometimes from our members, about why the teachers union is involved in this. And I'm guessing that some of you who are superintendents have been asked by your colleagues, why are you involved with the union in this effort? And so what I thought I'd do is ask Frank first to just tell us briefly why was it important for the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers to take the lead on this and jump into this work?
Well, Colleen, first of all, thank you for having us tonight because this is an important story that we have to tell, and we want everyone to know the importance of collaboration and working together and the results that can be accomplished when you do so. But several years ago, prior to the beginning of this, we had a number of schools that were facing some significant choices about turnaround and restructuring because of No Child Left Behind. And at that point, I think many of us in the field of education, both administratively and union leadership, realized that we had to look at teacher evaluation and how it was done so that we had a level playing field across the board when we came to making decisions like that, and also to provide the kinds of supports that were necessary to help teachers that were identified as needing some assistance. So that really set the ground stages for the beginning of this work. Through your efforts and the efforts of a number of other people, we were able to get some significant grants that were available for this really cutting-edge type of work that was going on, not only in Rhode Island, but it was a national trend. Thirdly, the Board of Regents passed some educator evaluation standards that now mandated that we all look at evaluation differently. And all of those things led to us coming to the recognition that together we could probably do a great job at this, but if we didn't do it together, we wouldn't have the kind of evaluation system that was fair to teachers and good for students in schools.
So when some people say that it might have been easier for us to sit it out or to sit on the sidelines, you're saying that it was important for the union to be involved?
Well, I think professionally we needed to be engaged in this kind of work because it is our profession. Teachers care about what they do. They care about the results that they're getting with students. They care about becoming better professionals. And in most cases, the kinds of feedback that teachers were getting and the evaluation instruments that were being used across the state didn't provide that kind of in-depth feedback that was really necessary for teachers to improve. So I think that's what's really driving this model and making this model unique and different and so much better than what we had in the past.
Great, thank you. I know that the AFT has been saying that the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers was out front pretty early on this, working with the American Federation of Teachers and folks who were thinking as we do that this union and the local affiliates really needed to be at the table so that we could ensure that teacher evaluation, which is pretty high stakes right now, was focused on professional growth, that, as Frank was saying, that we know best, but particularly in collaboration with those of you who have been doing this work for a long time as evaluators, as administrators, that putting our heads together around this could lead to the kind of system that we all value. I'm curious to know how you each feel about what Frank said, or really what your reasons were. I know that we invited you to participate in this, and one of the conditions of our invitation was that you would do this work collaboratively. And it's been, my great pleasure to see the 6 districts actively involved over the last 2 years, and that has meant a lot of meetings. It's been a long time commitment, and I have watched as each of you have really rolled up your sleeves and been involved in the work. So Liz, let's start with you. When that invitation was offered to you and your former president, what made the Cranston Teachers Alliance say yes to that invitation and get involved in this work?
Well, as you know, Frank was the former president of Cranston Teachers Alliance, and I was the vice president. And at the time, he had said that this is something that we definitely needed to get on board with, that we were professionals and that we should be a guiding beacon for our own profession and be part of it so that we have the ownership of it. So I went to the first meeting, and as we were sitting there, actually the majority of the room was Providence at the time because they were under some kind of scrutiny at the time and we were invited to go to that initial dinner, which was a very long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember coming out of that dinner saying, this is going to be a huge undertaking. And it was. We figured out through Kennett, the Rhode Island Federation, that it was 216 hours of design team time without any other extra time going back into the district and having meetings and that. But it was very important, and the more I got involved in it on the design team as the vice president of Cranston Teachers Alliance, the more you got to the point where you really had ownership of it.
we'll come back to that word ownership. I think that's a very important word for us to think about. Sean Doyle, Sean, you're the president of the West Warwick Teachers Alliance, and you too have been involved in this really from the beginning stages. And I was thinking when Liz was talking that in addition to telling me why you were interested in accepting the invitation, if one of your members said to you, Sean, why is the West Warwick Teachers Alliance involved in this? What would you say? Why is it important for you to be involved?
Oh, and certainly that question has been asked.
I bet it has.
By at least one member anyway. But I think when you look at the effective components of a truly high-quality education system, I don't think people would argue that a fair and reliable evaluation system would not be among those components. And so the union's role in this process, I felt, to work collaboratively with the districts and administration to ensure that we have teacher voice. Because what we want to make sure happens is that teachers are no longer strictly the subject of the evaluation, but they're an integral part of that process in the evaluation. And we feel that being the professionals in the field every day with students, we certainly have expertise to lend to that process. And I think we found by working with our administrative partners, we've been able to truly enhance what both sides would individually bring to the table by doing it together. One thing that I like to say when I talk about this is, because we often hear, why are we part of this process? And I'm sure that the superintendents and other administrators hear, why are you working with labor on an issue that's so important? And when I talk to people about that, my take on that is, we very clearly, as superintendents and union presidents, have roles that are separate from one another. But until we can identify the roles that we have, roles and responsibilities that we have that are in common, we're not going to be moving our districts forward at the pace we need to.
And that's interesting. I'm going to ask you, Ken, as the superintendent in West Warwick, so Sean's partner in this effort, I think Sean raises a really interesting point. And so evaluation is usually your purview. If we think about evaluation, we usually think that the administrators are conducting evaluation, and as I think Sean kind of alluded to, in the old way of thinking, that might have been completely in your bailiwick. First of all, why were you interested, and why was your administration interested in joining this effort and knowing that you'd be doing so as a partner with the teachers union?
Well, that's very interesting, because I thought when we were asked to participate to begin with, and Sean had approached me, and so I'm thinking about it, and I'm saying, well, this is a great opportunity for West Warwick. And actually, I thought it was a privilege for West Warwick to be invited with the other school districts. At the same time, because I knew that evaluation was going to be such a high-stakes entity, I really thought that we needed to control our own destiny in this. And if we could participate in a collaborative way, we'd be further ahead in the long run than ever before. So that was kind of natural to me to be able to do that. I've always felt that way to begin with. I've always rather have strong unions be with us if we're going to move the entire education agenda forward. It's with our union partners. So I knew that that was going to be a nice fit for us anyways.
And it's interesting when you talk about moving the agenda forward, that it takes two to tango, if you will, so that evaluation, I'm not sure everybody recognizes that evaluation is really a part of moving that agenda forward. And it seems to me that when I look at what's happening in West Warwick, that you have used evaluation in some ways as either a jumping off point or actually a connecting to some of the good work you two have done as partners and in the past.
You know, the evaluation system in itself, it was never meant to say, I gotcha, and then we're going to go get people. It was really a point of improving teaching and learning. And so consequently, we wanted to be a part of and develop collaboratively with our other 5 districts a system that in fact would do just that. You'd have the partnership that would embrace each other in the development of this program or this evaluation system. If we didn't do that, then it was going to be top-down anyways.
Yeah.
It was going to be from somewhere else, whether it was from RIDE or the Board of Regents or the legislature. Someone was going to pass it down to us, so why not control our own entity? We're the experts in the field. And certainly teachers in the classroom have a lot to offer in that practice in what that development should be.
That's interesting. At the AFT, we keep saying that we want things to be done with us, not to us. And that sounds a lot like what you were just saying. Your colleague, Peter Nero, over here on the end, you've collaborated with the union before. I know you have. And I'm interested in having you tell me why you thought it was important to be involved in this work, but maybe build off what Ken was saying a little bit in terms of this idea of having something done together or with us instead of to us, and how you as a superintendent feel your collaboration with the Cranston Teachers Alliance might have led you toward that way of getting this thing implemented.
Well, fortunately for us, we've had a long history of collaboration, and I've been in the district like Liz and Frank were for many years. This is 34 of my 36 years are in Cranston. When we were actually negotiating our contract in 07, 08, long before even the commissioner came here, we already had as a memorandum of agreement that we would develop a new teacher evaluation instrument. We had been through this once before, maybe 8 or 9 years previous to this. The one thing that I did not want to see happen as we roll this out, because it has become, as Ken says, more high stakes, is that we wanted to make sure that we rolled this out correctly, which we didn't do when we rolled out one in '99, which was we wanted to make sure that we would have a lot of professional development for all of our teachers. Again, no one wants to blindside anyone on this. We want to make sure that everyone was trained. And what we did differently this time, we agreed to pilot this, and we piloted last year in the second semester at 3 of our schools. We did some elementary and we did some high school, because again, being a very practical person myself, seeing what we had our shortfalls going back 10 years ago, we did not want that to happen this time. And again, despite all the professional development, there are always going to be some bumps in the road, and that's why we put in a coordinator this year. We're very fortunate in Cranston. All 3 districts have a coordinator who is a full-time person who's able to help smooth out those bumps in the road, so to speak. But again, in fact, last year, Cranston was honored. We were invited by Arnie Duncan, the Commissioner of the U.S. Department of Education. We went to Denver, Colorado, myself, Liz, as president of the union, and the chair of our school committee, Andre Ayanaz. We were flown to Denver to meet with other districts around the country who were collaborating to get real good results. Again, it's been a history with us, and we have some shared leadership in some areas.
I actually remember that. Not that we go back all that long, but some of us have a little bit of experience on our side around here in terms of numbers of years. But I remember that first effort that you folks worked on in terms of evaluation. It's interesting to hear you say that you wanted to do it right this time. One of the things I think that we have brought to the table in terms of the State Federation and my going back a few years with Cranston is the professional development work. And my recollection is that you folks had a collaboration with the union around professional development for a long time. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, we've had that. We didn't have that with the last teacher evaluation instrument, but we've had, again, a collaboration that goes back. And again, knowing what the shortfalls were when we rolled out, we came up with a pretty good evaluation instrument. It was a Danielson hybrid. But we did not, it was basically, we dumped it into the laps of the principals, and the teachers really just got a manual at that particular point in time. It was very difficult. And again, as superintendent, I did not want to see that happen again. I don't think anyone did. We wanted to make sure it'd be successful. And at the same token, we were competing against the state model too. So we wanted to make sure that we would put things in place that would help us to be successful. I think the competition was good in a lot of ways because it allowed us to push back and forth on this, and again, I think this instrument will take a little bit more time, but it's going to be hugely successful as it's been already, moving forward.
Excellent. And it's funny, there are multiple models in the state. Well, I don't know if 3 counts as multiple, but we have 6 districts involved in the Innovation Consortium. We have one of our affiliates, Coventry, which had been doing great work in evaluation for a very long time, collaborative as well. Their model has been approved. And then, as we all know, there is the Department of Education Rhode Island model. And when we say Department of Education, we know that they did this in collaboration with other districts and stakeholders across the state as well. But they've had a monumental effort on their hands in terms of rolling this out across the state. And you mentioned professional development and training, Peter, and one of the things I keep hearing may have given these districts, our innovation districts, a leg up, you know, as opposed to some of the other districts, is this idea of the professional development and training. When we think about evaluation systems going back, we've all been involved in them. We've all been in the classroom, no matter what our position is in education at the moment. And when I think what I've learned from administrators, because I've been doing a lot of work with you folks over the last couple of years, is that while we may have said in the past, you know, let the administration do their job, one of the things I've learned is that administrators may not have gotten or received the kind of training in doing evaluations that are really necessary in order to equip them to gather evidence and conference with teachers and make recommendations that we all kind of think comes with the territory in terms of being an evaluator. So, Peter, to continue with you, think about your, you know, I guess the work you've done as an administrator, whether it's a building principal or a supervisor of others. How do you think the current evaluation system and the preparation that your administrators are receiving under the model we've designed together is different from past, whether it's the recent past evaluation system or systems that you were a part of going back a ways? What's different? Everybody's talking about evaluation like it's the new thing on the block. It's been around for a while. What's the difference?
If I could go back to my graduate days, we took a course in evaluation. But this is what we're doing right now is so robust in terms of what the principal, the training that they get, what they're looking for when they're in the classroom as they script the lessons, the types of things, the evidence, they're collecting evidence, they're analyzing evidence. In the same token, because the teacher is going through the professional development as well, the expectation is there. They know what the expectation is of the principal, where it wasn't. Going back to when I first was in graduate school, we took a course. Sometimes it was a checklist of things you were just looking for, but there wasn't that professional conversation, again, from the principal being in the classroom, in spending that time scripting the lesson, going back, analyzing the lesson, then sitting down with the teacher and going through it. Now it's more of, this is what you did, this is what you need to improve on in moving forward. It will help to make our teachers better classroom teachers in the long run. I think that's what they all want. I think they want that feedback. And again, if you really go back to where we were, and I will go back pre-99 in Cranston, we weren't looking for the types of things that we're looking for right now in terms of walking into a classroom and seeing the evidence of the teacher's performance, reporting that evidence to the teacher, and the teacher then can reflect on it. We're all, you know, reflective practitioners, and we want to make sure that we're better. That's the bottom line to it all.
And the last time we did a show focused on this, I talked about what it was like when I started teaching. You always hate to you know, date yourself, but that was way back in the 70s. And I don't know that I knew as a teacher what we now call the standards, or what the expectations are in terms of my teaching, or what you as a principal would be looking for when you came into my classroom. And Sean, I'm wondering, you know, when you think back as a teacher about, or you even think about what you're hearing from the teachers you represent, in terms of what's different today than it was when you were being evaluated under an old system, do you see that difference? Expectations, the training, how is that factored in? Is that a part of the difference that you see?
Absolutely, and that's what made our participation in this process so enticing to us. I think we saw ahead of time that we would have an opportunity to help develop this evaluation instrument that we're using. And like I said in the beginning, I think I can remember being evaluated when I first started teaching. And I felt that I was the subject of an evaluation, whereas now I've been evaluated twice during the pilot process. And both times I felt like I was a part of the evaluation. And the fact that the evaluator and the evaluatee can sit down together and talk about the lesson that took place, and the teacher can bring evidence to the table, and that evidence matters, and it helps actually form the final evaluation rating, I think is very encouraging to teachers. They feel that they truly have a voice in the process. And another important thing is, I think it's also important that all teachers are recognizing that the process isn't finished yet, that we went through a pilot process, we've identified some hurdles and kinks, and that everybody is willing to address them, and that's encouraging.
You know, it's interesting, one of the other things that I note when you talk about the difference in West Warwick, and I think in Cranston as well, in addition to training administrators to conduct evaluations, you have been sending some teachers, or what we call peer evaluators, potential peer evaluators, to take this training. Sean, if you touch on that briefly, that's a big difference too. Training folks who might be a part of the evaluation evidence collection process who never were before. And then I'm going to ask Ken to talk about that from his perspective.
I think it's a huge, huge benefit to the evaluation process that we're implementing in West Warwick. Teachers recognized that this was going to be a very comprehensive evaluation instrument, and that if all of the onus to complete these evaluations were on the administrators, that one of two things would happen, and to no one's fault, that either we would not finish, or people would be forced to rush through the process. So by training other classroom teachers and peers to become evaluators in the system to assist the administration in that process has made a big difference in terms of us being able to carry out the process with integrity. And I think teachers have recognized the value in that, and I think that administrators have also recognized the value in that. But it is a little funny. In the very beginning, it was strange, where a lot of teachers thought that would be an asset to the process, but some teachers were actually very, very hesitant to jump into an evaluation where they were being evaluated by a peer. And at the beginning, they really had that same reaction that you mentioned, where they would say, well, you know what, that's the administration's job. They should be evaluating me, not another person. But after going through the process for a year, and with all of the training that has taken place, that is one of the biggest components to our success, was the level of training for evaluators and teachers. At the end of the process, I think that the vast majority of the population see the value in it.
You know, it's interesting, we keep talking about the evaluation rating. At the end of the year, everyone gets a rating. You're, you know, almost like the scarlet letter, people feel like. We felt in this process that we wanted to focus more on that professional conversation and the idea of including peers and building a community where folks look at practice and talk together about practice. I keep saying if that's really where we could focus our energies and not worry so much about the big letter at the end of the year about highly effective, effective, whatever, we'd really move the dime on teacher effectiveness and improve practice in our classrooms. Sean raises a good point though, Ken. That's different for you as well. So again, if it was in your purview to be the administrator, to do the evaluation, and now not only is evaluation changing for you in terms of your role in the process, and I want you to talk about that a bit, this idea of working with partners who are peers, who are teachers, how do you see that as changing things?
Well, so you want us to put all the weight on all the administrators to do all the evaluations and just hold hands and jump off the Manhattan Bridge together. That's what you're asking us to do.
That's not what I asked you to do, but it does seem like that's what's being asked of administrators.
If we look back for 2 years ago when we started the process, I remember Liz and all of us sitting together, and Ride was in that conversation with us at that time, saying, if we don't do this right, if we don't have the PD, if we don't roll this out appropriately, then in fact, this system will fail under its own weight. We will never be successful. So right from the beginning, we had new words in our vocabulary, and that was, how are we going to reach capacity? How are we going to do the professional development, make sure everyone knows what the system is, to be fair to everyone, and the teachers who are going to be evaluated have confidence that the person who's doing the evaluation is certified, went through training, and that training is grueling. Unlike other systems that we see taking place, that system is grueling. So in Little West Warwick, having 340 teachers and a dozen administrators or so, we have 55 to 60 certified evaluators in the district. And the majority of those are teacher leaders. So consequently, without those teacher leaders and doing the training in peer evaluation and being teamed up and looking at teacher evaluation in that way and working together, we in fact can get together and be accurate with regard to what does that evidence show us. Going back to Troy and Albany and some of the other places when we did all the evaluation and the number of hours, people could finally say, this is an accurate portrayal of that teacher's practices and that evidence that has been provided us, that is worthwhile. So everyone's looking at the same thing, but I think overall, we really feel comfortable. We actually can reach capacity in the district in comparison to, I'm going to say, most of the state right now, which it will not be able to reach capacity done right.
Sure, and actually, Frank, that's a great lead into where I wanted to go with you, because we're very proud of that. One of the things that we decided to do, which I guess is different, is insist that high-quality training be provided up front. In some cases, that's a challenge. It's costly.
Sure.
We've put tremendous resources behind that. We were lucky to get a grant from the American Federation of Teachers, the Innovation Grant, and the work we did in the first year positioned us to get a second grant from the United States Department of Education. But the idea of helping support this and build the capacity in doing this, do you see the RAFT continuing its role? What kind of role can the federation, a state federation, play to support these districts in the work that they're doing?
Well, I think just to echo what everyone else has said, a lot of the criticism about the earlier evaluation systems were that they didn't have consistency, validity, or reliability. The kinds of training that we're doing now are providing all of those elements, which really gives credence to the fact that this is real evaluation, this is real data that people are getting. It can't be criticized. It can't be considered subjective from school to school or place to place. So it has that reliability and validity across the board. I don't think we have any choice as an entity, as a professional organization, which we are, then to continue to support this and try to expand it to our other districts where we can. It is a huge undertaking. It's a tremendous cost in human capital, the numbers of people. One of the exciting and important residual benefits of this whole process is it's allowed some of our teacher leaders to emerge from this. We've been able to cultivate some folks at the local levels that have emerged as educational leaders in the districts. You mentioned earlier the I3 coordinators. A number of our other peer evaluators are coming forward, and they're working with their administrators in the different buildings at the building levels and providing that great input. And we've always said that it's, as a union, it's great when we work with good administrators because we have a common interest in doing what's right for the district and the students and the teachers. When everyone's on the same playing field, level playing field, and they understand one another and they work commonly to achieve a goal that's helpful to everyone, it makes the job much easier. And I think that's what this process has done. It's really given people the kinds of training and support to really help them flourish as professionals around this evaluation process. And I can see that continuing and hopefully expanding.
You know, it's interesting because when we've at the RAFT focused on network and the networking approach for many, many years, whether it was building our professional development capacity and now working on, mentoring and now the evaluation piece. And the two things that you said really kind of come together, because if we're really going to rely on this evaluation system, and if our members are going to trust that either the folks who are providing them with the evidence from what they've observed and hopefully working with them to come to some determination of where they are on the continuum of effectiveness, it really behooves those of us who serve in kind of coordinating or facilitative roles to make sure that those opportunities exist for the training and the conversation across districts. What happens in West Warwick and happens in Cranston is similar.
It's not only interlocal collaboration, but it's intralocal.
Yeah.
We've created these bonds now across all of these districts where people are working together, they're supporting one another, they're raising common concerns, so everyone's not dealing with the same problem separately, that you're sharing resources, you're sharing ideas, and you're solving problems collaboratively, and those problems are, you know, common amongst all the locals that are involved. So it's really exciting work, and the people that have been involved have done a phenomenal job. And it's, you know, it's a credit to all of the districts involved and to all of the people involved.
I agree. You know, it's funny. Last time I mentioned that I have to do these monthly or quarterly reports because of the grant funding that we received, and lots of times they ask about a side or an unanticipated benefit, and that's one of them. The cross-local conversation and the support that we've received. So, of course, when we're sitting here now, and Liz, you're going to be so happy that I come to you with this question. We've talked a lot about the differences, and I think it's time to shift up a bit. And it does sound like we're all linking arms and singing Kumbaya a little bit. And I was just reading earlier today, and I didn't have to read this article to find out, but we've been hearing across this whole gradual implementation year that there are a lot of challenges out there, that there are a lot of concerns on the part of teachers and administrators about the new system. This system is being designed to you know, match up with the requirements from the Department of Education, and there are a lot of challenges because of that. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing? Okay,
well, first I do have to say that there have been many, many challenges. However, because we've had this background of now almost 3 years, as Ken and everyone, Peter, Sean, and Frank were talking about, the fact that we have created relationships, and it was a collaboration to the point where, as I said before, we owned the outcome, and if we disagreed, we certainly couldn't say, I'm going to take my ball and go home, because you had to face each other the next meeting or the next, you had to come to consensus. And I think Ken talked about us being, we were in a subgroup at the beginning, and even though I knew people, I wouldn't have really known them to the degree that we know them now if we hadn't sat through all those meetings, if we hadn't been kind of sequestered together. I think the challenges were really getting through what we were charged to do, because each group was, and once we realized that we had a real consensus and a common thread that went through it all, so then we basically had really good conversations and resolving some of the issues.
And so tell me some of those issues,
Liz. Given those relationships, it made it better to go through what we had to do. And so some of the issues were the fact that there was some inconsistencies in the tool itself, and by going to the design team, we could tell them where we were having problems, and we could discuss it as a group. Some of the teacher, the training, some of the teacher training and some of the evaluator training needed some tweaks here and then, and we did that along the way, so as the training evolved. Some of the people that were going through the process really did not understand it, and we had support for them to be able to go and explain, look, we're in this together and this is what we're doing. I think the biggest hurdle that we needed to get over was the fact of not really now the new tool, because our districts have had a lot of professional development, but now when you add in the matrix from RIDE and the student achievement, growth and achievement, that's really sending a lot of you know, red flags up for people, because they felt that they wanted to concentrate on the teacher evaluation piece and basically get that really strong and then move on with the other piece. But we had it all in the same year, and some of the teachers felt really overwhelmed with that.
So in moving and trying to close with just a couple of issues, we had student learning piece as a challenge.
Yes.
The pace of implementation was a challenge. Ken, is there anything else you'd add as a challenge? I'm going to have you each hit a quick one.
I think just placing this very important mandate, so to speak, on the laps of the administration and what their course of the day usually was like, and just putting this on them. And something of this importance would probably be a 2 or 3 year implementation piece in any other state. But no, it's boom, right there on you. it was so enormous that I felt the administration starting to not even take deep breaths and hold their breath. And then meeting and resolving some of those pieces right from the start. And being more comfortable with the instrument itself and having the professional development, they actually are really well equipped right now to handle that whole capacity issue and knowing the piece. The teachers having the knowledge of the instrument and people to be able to go to. West Warwick was very different than most places because we have our Professional Development Academy. And I'm surrounded by great educators who are AFT members, not administrators per se. I mean, I had great administrators as well. So they, in fact, helped us implement this and resolve any issues that would come up, especially through our Teacher Evaluation Committee or through the Professional Development Academy.
So in closing then, we've talked about the value of the collaborative effort, and I think Ken has said it well. We've probably not dealt with as many of the challenges as we could have if we wanted to have this as one of those little gripe sessions. Is it safe to say that challenges lie ahead of us?
Absolutely.
Sean?
I would like to comment on that. One of the parts of the process that have been good is the collaboration in the acknowledgement that it's not perfect. Because it's difficult to stand with confidence if you're not willing to recognize what makes you fall down. The entire process, or virtually the entire process, has been collaborative in terms of the local evaluation tool. But the mandate of student learning objectives has posed significant questions and problems in the districts and a lot of anxiety, but that part of the process doesn't seem so collaborative right now. And that's concerning to teachers, and I would hope it's concerning to the entire education community.
And I would guess, since I asked Frank Flynn the question about what's the role of the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals going forward, hopefully it will be the continued support of the work that we're doing collaboratively so that we can successfully implement what we've designed and so that we can continue to have the voice that I think we have on this issue and recognize that problems such as implementing student learning objectives and getting it right, not just getting it done, will be something that we can work on together, administration and union, in your local districts and from our state federation. And again, I think we have great promise in what we've been doing. We have challenges ahead of us, but if we continue to work this way, I feel quite confident that we will continue to be successful. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kim Mercer. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of the Pawtucket Schools of Concord. And one of the things that I think is the most beneficial of this evaluation system is that it allows teachers to grow as teachers. There are very, very clear expectations, and based on the rubric, they can see where they're at and where they need to grow. And the conversations that we are having with teachers are very rich and meaningful, and I think that it allows teachers to get to their fullest potential.
My name is John Hyde-Avinas Jr. I'm the principal of the Jacqueline M. Walsh School for the Performing and Visual Arts in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. What I'm finding very beneficial of this new teacher evaluation system is that the teachers are really looking at their lessons in a different way. They're seeing a lot of methodologies that they're looking at while they're constructing their lesson plans, and they're seeing the elements one by one. A lot of them are telling me that they wish that they had the time to kind of develop these lessons on a regular basis. And because they're looking at this more as the evaluative tool, but a lot of them are looking at the elements that are in this evaluation system and the benefits that helps them to develop their own lessons for their classrooms. Well, I think we've been really looking to reduce the number of elements that are in the model and looking at the rubrics and some of the redundancies that have occurred in those rubrics that we're seeing in the new model being reduced. And we've seen the collapsing of standard 4 and 5 into just one standard. So I think it's going to provide us the opportunity to do a much more effective job of rating teachers because of the reduced number of elements. From an educational standpoint, the conversations that we're having with teachers is so much more intense and just more collaborative when we're discussing evaluations and the process and what we're looking for and what they're trying to convey to us when they're generating their lessons and what we're observing in the classroom.
John Santangelo, I teach at Weston Hills Middle School in Cranston, Rhode Island, and I'm the Vice President of the Cranston Teachers Alliance. And I think the benefit of the innovation model has been it is for teachers by teachers. So teachers actually sat down and have had their hand in the design of this model, and we've continued to have our hand in the design of the model as time progresses, and some of the changes that are being made are actually being made by teachers, so it makes it very beneficial for everyone.
The only way that this would be successful is with clear collaboration between the union and the administration. If this wasn't collaborated upon, this would not ever be implemented to its fullest ability to impact the greatest in the classroom. The collaboration has led to people working together, to them developing this program together, creating a tool that has allowed them to better the evaluation system in the entire state.
As Vice President of my local, I can see where the implementation and the collaboration between the administration and the teachers union has been very, very successful here. It's important to have so that you have full buy-in by everyone involved, all parties that are involved in this. And again, it's always about bettering our practice and bettering our profession. And the best way to do that, of course, is to make sure that everyone's always working hand in hand in order to have a successful program. And I believe that we've been able to accomplish that through our collaboration here.
Hi, I'm Ron Beaupre. I'm president of the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance. I find that after talking to my members, the biggest benefit to the innovation evaluation model is the reflection on practice. All of my members have said that it is the most reflective process we've ever had. They're actually looking at their daily lessons, and they're seeing that after one evaluation how they now are improving their practice on a daily basis. The importance of labor management collaboration to the process of evaluation is that with labor and management together on board, working hard to understand evaluation and understand the need for support for our educators, it makes that process much more valuable to all involved. Administrators understand that teachers need support, and teachers understand that administrators aren't there to get them.
My name is Cindy Giroux. I'm the principal of the Captain Hunt Early Learning Center in Central Falls, Rhode Island. I think the most single benefit of the innovation model has been the ability for teachers and administrators to have conversations around instruction and professional development. And those conversations are now comprehensive and focused. So we're making changes to instruction and student outcomes. I think the changes or the improvements in the rubric make this whole evaluation system doable. I think this year in the implementation I learned a great deal, and I'm going to be able to carry them forth. We're just reviewing the changes in the rubric. We've streamlined it, there's more clarity, we've reduced the duplications or redundancies in the rubric, so I think it's much more doable for us. The collaboration between labor and administrators is essential in any change that you want to make, and bringing all constituents to the table to review and to plan and make changes will only ensure the success of the innovation model.
Over the last couple of months, we've made a lot of changes to the innovation model evaluation system, and this summer we're providing some training for folks who have been through the process this year of gradual implementation. Didn't always feel so gradual, but what we thought we'd do during this training is take a little break and find out from your perspective, either as someone who's been evaluated or someone who's been conducting evaluations, how it's gone, what some of the challenges were, what some of the benefits were, and whether or not you think the changes that we've made are going to strengthen the system and improve our chances of success next year during full implementation. So I think it might be a good idea if we just go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Colleen Callahan, and I'm the Director of Professional Issues at the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Health Professionals, and I've been coordinating this effort for the last couple of years. Molly?
I'm Molly Scarborough from West Warwick High School. I'm Patrick McGee, principal of Woonsocket Middle School.
Maureen Azar, principal of Ellet School in Central Falls.
Richard Marchetti, music coordinator in West Warwick.
Karen Altieri, 6th grade teacher in Cranston.
Great. There have been a lot of concerns raised all across the state about implementing a new evaluation system, and this one's pretty complex. I'm wondering, Molly, how did things work for you in terms of being evaluated under the new system? Why don't you tell us first what was the most beneficial in terms of going through this system? What worked for you?
I really enjoyed the system. It allowed me, I think, to personally grow. It allowed me immediate feedback, which allowed me to create my SLOs and my PGOs. From there, I was able to get some data and grow. So I really feel like it was a full circle process, which only helped me grow professionally. So I think it was beneficial.
Good. One of the things I'm wondering about, I've heard from a lot of teachers that the conversation that you had after your classroom observation with your evaluator was different from the way it might have been in the past. How did that work for you? How did the post-conference work? Did you get something out of it? Was it just the way it always had been, or did you find it different in any way?
I really felt like it was a two-way conversation, that my evaluator was really trying to help me grow, help me to pinpoint areas where I really needed to grow, as well as pointing out the areas that I did have. It was a daunting experience trying to look at all the rubrics, but I know that is changing next year, of not having so many indicators and really focusing in on streamlining the process.
So would you say that that's one of the biggest challenges? Did you find that, or were there any other challenges? What was
That was
difficult?
one of the biggest challenges for me, just looking at those rubrics and not becoming overwhelmed and trying to process the whole evaluation process.
Thank you. Richard, you are in the same district.
Yep.
And you served in two roles.
Yep.
So you were evaluated under the system, and you were an evaluator. Talk a little bit about how that worked, and take it from either perspective.
As an evaluator, it actually helped me knowing the system going into it when I created my lesson. I knew what to look for. I knew what my evaluator was going to be looking for. That was on the being evaluated side. I really liked the conversations. I think that the pre-conversation and the post-conversation really was like Molly said, a two-way conversation to really look deep into the lesson and at the rubrics and be able to either, help out my rating, or gave me a chance to provide more evidence or to defend some stuff. Really enjoyed that piece of it.
What did you find challenging?
I found challenging as one getting evaluated was the initial template starting, when I had to first hand that in. I thought that there was a lot of redundancy among the questions, but now that I've looked at the new template, I think it's really going to be much more beneficial and much more pointed at exactly what is going to be looked for in the rubrics.
That's actually the feedback that we got from all of you around the redundancies, particularly, that ended up with people doing, 35-page lesson plans.
Yeah, mine was about 35 pages.
Well, that won't happen again. we tried to get rid of that. Karen, I'm going to come back to you as an evaluatee in a minute, but Patrick, you are a middle school principal.
Middle school.
And so you have been evaluating people for a long time in your job. Mm-hmm. Did you see any differences this year in the way in which you evaluated people under the new system? And talk first about what you think might have been a benefit. What was something good that came out of it?
One of the things that I found that was good and effective of the process was just the level of conversations that I had with teachers and faculty, much more in depth than I've had necessarily in the past with the old system that our district had been using. So I would say that just the level of professional conversation was much greater because I found that the indicators that we use really drives the level of the conversation versus what we had used in the past in Woonsocket. So I would say that was definitely an area of improvement that was beneficial for myself as an evaluator and also for the teachers that I worked with.
So the language in the rubric was something that you used when you were talking with teachers?
Definitely. The language in the rubric was beneficial for both. It gave me a better understanding of what I was going in and observing, and I think it gave the teachers a better understanding of how to prepare their lessons so that they got the most out of their their student achievement and what they're looking for their students to achieve.
Great. Well, obviously, that's at the heart of what we're hoping will happen. We've heard from a lot of principals that this is very challenging, that implementing the new system is challenging. What kind of challenges, or give me an example of a challenge that really, hit you this year?
The biggest challenge is just the time. Our middle school is a very large middle school. We have about 100 teachers. So myself and my assistant principals and instructional leaders in our district, we're doing those evaluations. So they're time consuming. I also found that some of the indicators were not confusing, but just understanding the language of some of the indicators. So what our district did, and we're going to continue to do, is have conversations about the indicators and what does this mean when we go in and we do an observation. So some of the areas that were challenging have kind of led to better conversation among administrators within our district.
Great. And one of the things that we're hoping will happen now is that we brought you all back to take a look at the changes that we've made in that language, and then you can bring that back and continue the conversation. And
Sure.
That's the aim of all of this. I think a lot of people are concerned that evaluation's about pointing a finger at someone. And we were very clear when we started this that we wanted it to be just the opposite, that we wanted this to be a helpful process. Karen, as a teacher, do you think that this process is helpful? Do you find that the new system has the potential to be more helpful to you as a teacher than the old, or not? I mean, be honest. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm in a more unique position than many of you, and it's because I'm a more veteran teacher.
You and I are together on that.
I actually have lifetime certification, so I haven't been under the microscope as an educator like many of you have. So this was a very rigorous experience, and I think people who have taught as many years as I have felt similarly. This was my second post-conference ever in my career.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've been teaching for how many years?
22 years.
Wow.
22 years.
Wow.
So it was a very beneficial experience, and I think that it was very intimidating for many teachers who were veteran teachers such as myself. I think there was an awful, a lot of teachers still tried to aim for that highly effective, and were very disappointed when they weren't able to achieve that. But personally, I found it very rewarding to sit down and actually have a conversation about my practice and really reflect on what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis.
It's funny, we have some research that we share with teachers. I don't know, I think you're familiar with the Foundations of Effective Teaching program. There's a piece of research that talks about when we grade student papers, if we just put a grade on it, they don't pay attention to it. If we write just comments on it, they really pay attention to those comments, and it has a better likelihood of improving their achievement. It sounds like what you said about feedback is something you found beneficial, whereas that final effectiveness rating, the highly effective, the HE or the E, is something that's just causing some concern.
It absolutely was. Absolutely. There were many teachers in my building who were devastated that they weren't highly effective teachers. Their feeling is, I've been teaching this many years, what do you mean I'm not effective? Mm-hmm. Their interpretation of effective is that they're just adequate.
Right.
And there's a whole conversation that has to be had around that, so the teachers realize that that effective is okay. You're a really good teacher if you're an effective teacher.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen 3 times each week: Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 8 p.m., and Saturdays at 5 p.m.